So here I am driving along trying to shoot a video, and the roads are horrible, and the van is bouncing, as you can see. There's rattling sounds, and I figured, hey, I'll just go along here for a while until the roads get better, and then it dawned on me I'm in Indiana! So that's not going to happen. So I'll do the best I can here. This is a follow-on to my 2 cents about that tour helicopter. I have seen further videos of this, and one of which shows a completely intact rotor system spinning out of the sky, seemingly undamaged, which, wow. And as I said in my last video, if you look at the airframe falling out of the sky, the mast is missing. The mast is the part that the rotor sits on. Now, is the mast attached to the rotor system? I don't know. From the angle, I can't tell. But having an intact rotor system like that's problematic. And then you look at the wreckage falling out of the sky, and the tail boom is cut off in the middle. And I thought for a long time about making this video because I had a forced landing in that exact same type of airframe back in 2002, which I mentioned. And it was into the water. And I blew the pontoons, and a big, long technical explanation of how we got there. But I landed hard. The aircraft sank, and the rotor blade did flex down, and it knocked off the winglets, which is, you have your rear horizontals and little things. It knocked off my winglets, and then it took out the tail rotor drive shaft cover and a big chunk of the tail rotor drive shaft itself, which sits on top of the tail boom. I actually watched it hit the water. It shot out in the distance. And the reason I'm mentioning this is when that blade flexed down, which takes a pretty hard hit to get it to go down, it was behind the horizontals is where the damage was done. And if you watch that aircraft falling out of the sky, the tail boom is snapped off 3 or 4 feet in front of the horizontal stabilizers, which I don't care how hard you pull that blade, it's not getting down there and cutting that. So based on watching what was left of the aircraft plummeting out of the sky and the tail boom being missing completely and the rotor freewheeling out of the sky, not attached to the airframe, that was something really bad happened, and it's probably got something to do with the transmission. My theory on why the tail boom got broken off more than halfway is the aircraft, think of it as a boat. It's going through the air, it's going through the water. It can take a lot of pressure doing this, but if all of a sudden it goes like this, and that same pressure is hitting in a boat, it's going to buckle under the pressure because it's too much weight. Kind of the same thing goes for airframes. If you're really going, all of a sudden you snap it sideways because catastrophic failure, the air pressure, it can't take that kind of crosswind. It can't take that kind of pressure, and the Long Ranger is uniquely long and lanky over other helicopters. And again, I'm starting getting this technical stuff my head, but aircraft with those little short tail booms and the shorter rotor systems and shorter masts are more like sports cars. The mast on a Long Ranger is pretty tall, and then you compare it to something like a Hughes 500, it's like this. The mast on the other ones are, yeah. And how I tell people this is, if here's your mast and here's your rotor system turning, you're basically carrying this as being dragged around underneath the aircraft. Well, if you take your finger and you go like this, okay, now imagine the mast only this tall. See the difference? I mean, it's like there's airframes where you literally look left and the aircraft turns left. I mean, it's that nervous. Well, the Long Ranger's a little more swingy sway in the design. So for reasons to be determined, the transmission and the rotor systems separated from the aircraft. Again, never heard of that happening. And I think what happened was the aircraft pitched, when it snapped, because there's a lot of torque going on, I think the aircraft pitched in an unnatural angle, and the pressure just took off the back end of it, is what we're going to come up with. But I am real curious as to the outcome of this, because these aircraft were designed, if you remember, back in the 1960s. And anytime a new aircraft comes out, they have to test it, retest it, and cross-test it, and over-test it. But just the nature of life, there's going to be issues with it, and they'll correct it, or they'll ground them and fix it. There's different ways, but eventually you run out of things to fix. There's just nothing left that's routinely wrong with it. And the Long Ranger and the Jet Ranger are both way past the time they should be having problems, especially with the heavy mechanicals. I mean, maybe the new electronic flashing light button stuff, I mean, that happens, but the pure mechanics of the airframe, this is just some kind of freak thing. It's like you hear about somebody, they got killed by a flying manhole cover. That actually happens when the methane builds up and it blows and it just randomly wham. I'm like, wow, it was not your day, It just, I don't know. I'm still waiting to see how this one turns out, but I had a theory of the main rotor for reasons unknown hitting the tail boom, and I'm not seeing it now. If it somehow got back there and got a bite out of it, you'd see some damage. You'd see something, because that main rotor blade's not exactly a solid block of steel. It's fiber inside of there. All right, well, that's my follow-on 2 cents. Take care.